In today's video, I'll teach you how to make a timeless arrangement that every perfect host should be able to create at Christmas. And the added bonus, there's no foam. So welcome back. Now today's arrangement is using wire netting rather than floral foam. It's a more sustainable option and it's a more natural way of arranging flowers. And I'm going to be doing a table centre in a less formal style than maybe some table arrangements we've seen in the past. It's an all-round arrangement that can be seen from front to back. And it's a design that's going to use some beautifully textured greenery. Now, first of all, we need to make sure that we have lots of different layers of our wire netting. We can't use a flat piece as it isn't going to support the flowers. And I'm going to pop this sort of almost ball-shaped piece of wire netting into my container. Now I need to make the gaps small enough so they support my flower material, but big enough that they allow the stems to be inserted in between. If we have too much wire netting squashed together, it will cause damage to the stems of the flowers while we're inserting them in. So bear in mind, if you're forcing your flowers into a narrow gauge wire netting, you're going to cause some damage to your flowers. Once the wire netting is in the container, we need to use a little bit of floral tape over the top to stop it moving around. Now I'm going to be adding quite a substantial amount of heavy greenery, and what I don't want to happen is that the weight of the greenery pulls my chicken wire out of the container. And in typical style, I've forgotten to bring the water. So let's go and find some water to fill up my container. It's a great idea to have flower food added into the water. Your container needs to be clean because if there's any bacteria in there from a previous arrangement, that's going to contaminate your flowers and reduce the lifespan. It's also beneficial to run your wire netting either through the dishwasher or place it in some warm soapy water so that you know that if there's any bacteria in there, it's been thoroughly removed. Now my first job is going to be to add some greenery, and I'm going to be using several different types. I think one of the lovely things about Christmas arrangements is there's lots of evergreen foliage that you can either buy from your florist shop or you can go out and forage for. Look for foliage that has different colours. This one is Pittosporum Tom Thumb and it has a really gorgeous burgundy tone. If you don't have anything like this, you can use some ivy, some conifer, you might have some holly that you can choose. And what I'm basically trying to do is to get a fairly circular shape. I don't want to have it perfectly matching on either side, but I do need to try and balance off the colour, especially when it's a dark foliage like this, because it's going to be quite dominant. And if we don't equally spread it out, we're going to end up with one side more dominant than the other. Now, a foliage I don't use very often is the Eflorist leatherleaf. And this one has a lovely point to it. It looks great in traditional designs and it's fantastic for creating those traditional shapes. But it's also going to give a nice outline to today's arrangement, and it's going to extend the colour slightly beyond those shorter pieces of the Pittosporum. Now I'm going to go in with 3 pieces, so I'm almost looking to equally disperse the colour out. Now I've decided to remove the water from the container so that I can tip it forward for you to see. My overhead camera isn't working at the moment, so I'm going to have to angle it so you can see it in the camera. But I've aimed to have these 3 fairly equally spread out, and because it's a different colour to the Pittosporum, it really does stand out at the moment, and it maybe looks a little bit out of place, but once I've introduced some of the Christmas foliages, it'll look a little bit more in keeping. Now everything I've placed into the design needs to have any foliage removed that's going to be sitting in the water, because we don't want to cause any bacteria to grow and in turn kill our flowers off. So before I place it in, I'm going to ensure that this end is nice and clean, and then we know that the water is going to stay clean and the design is going to last that bit longer for you. So I've got a couple of longer pieces, some shorter pieces towards the centre. And if you're new to arranging, don't worry at this stage about trying to get things perfectly matching on either side. We're going with a less formal design, and therefore you can get away with being a bit softer and more relaxed with your placements. And I'm going to redo this at a later date but use floral foam, so you can get two options. Not everybody likes the wire netting, or as we commonly call it, chicken wire. Some people like to have more control over their design, and you get that by using the floral foam. So I've created a bit of a circular outline. It might look a bit triangular at the moment because these are slightly longer, but I've got a little bit of extra greenery to fill in. And if you have access to greenery and you're able to go and forage for some, you might have a large garden where you can pick different types of greeneries, then this is the ideal time at Christmas to really use up all those beautiful evergreen foliages that we've got. If you're not lucky enough to have things in the garden, then go pop out to your florist shop to buy some, and you might be able to get hold of something just like this. You're gonna love it, or you might hate it. I think it's absolutely amazing. But what I'm going to do with the golden Populus is add it to the edges, just in between where I've placed the first 3 pieces of the leather leaf. And this is going to give that real opulent look to my arrangement. It's going to connect beautifully with the container. This is dipped in big vats of gold paint and allowed to dry, and you get that beautiful golden texture. So 3 pieces around the outside, just again to try and evenly distribute the colour. And then I'm going to add a little section to the middle so that we've got colour, this lovely golden colour, pretty much throughout the arrangement. And again, if you're lucky enough to have greenery in the garden, or you're able to pick it, you could create quite a sumptuous design with just foliage and not worry about flowers at all. That, with a few cones or some berries from the garden, would look absolutely amazing. I think I'm going to put 2 pieces in the centre just to fill that out. And because I have all that greenery nicely compacted within my chicken wire, that now is going to support the flowers and really help hold it all together. But isn't that lovely? I mean, you'd be delighted if you had that on the centre of your table at Christmas. This is the same type of design that I would do as a wedding florist, and I might do sets of them down a long table. And I could also add a lovely candle into the centre, but that so far is a really pretty design. Now I'm going to use a combination of flowers. I have a lovely, really dark red Gerbera, and I've also got a pink toned rose. Not everybody likes the traditional reds and greens at Christmas, so I thought to go along with the darker burgundy tones, I'd pick a pinkish sort of colour rose as well, just so that we get a bit of a variation and you're not seeing the same design from me year after year. So 3 lovely big red Gerberas. The dark centre is so great with the colour of the little Pittosporum, and I'm spreading them out fairly equally but not perfectly matching, because I don't want that really heavy set pattern that we see with quite traditional work. I want to make it a bit softer and a bit more informal. Now, I treated myself this week to some gorgeous roses, and I quite often get to this part of the video where I can't remember the name and it's gone from my head. So I'll overlay it on the screen in front, and then if you want to order it from your florist shop, or if you're a florist and you're watching me and you want to use them in designs, then you know what colour I've used. And if you're watching any of my tutorials and you don't quite understand the flower names that I'm talking about, I do have a very strong Welsh accent, and I appreciate that not all of you might be able to understand, but you can put subtitles on for all the videos. And in the description box, which is underneath the video, you'll find a list of all the flowers that I've used, so that if you do want to buy anything, there's a list there for you underneath the video. Beautiful, soft pink, burgundy and red, really festive colour combination. I've put 4 roses in so far, and I think I'm going to add another 2 to make 6 in total. Again, you could go with all roses, you don't have to mix them, or you could buy a mixed bunch from the supermarket. But what I'm trying to achieve here is flowers at different levels. A couple of these are a bit damaged on the outside, so we'll remove them. I'm trying to place flowers in at different levels, so we're not getting that really formal look that you've seen in many of the other designs. And it gives us that nice fashionable look that we're seeing in table arrangements for weddings. Next, I'm going to use some rosehip berries. I have already cut these to a similar length, and I want these quite low down in the arrangement, tucked down, so that we get some recession, and that is flowers at different heights. I need to make sure that it's deep enough to reach the water. It's not like when you're arranging in foam and you can raise the height of the flower. We've got to put them deep enough so that they're in the container and they have access to the water. But you'll see it's a really lovely shape, quite opulent, quite luxurious, and I would be delighted with that on the centre of my table. So next of all, I've got a flower called a leucodendron. You might know this as Safari Sunset. This is a miniature version and it's a spray. And I'm this time going to put this in as a whole stem. I don't want everything perfectly matching on that sort of dome effect. I want to give the impression that we're in a really beautiful, stately home, and this is a gorgeous arrangement on the centre. Now I'm going to move one of my gerberas. If we look at this one here, the head is facing up towards the ceiling. If I just angle it down, you can see that the head is facing upwards, and we really don't get to see that flower head. And because this is going to be in the centre of a table, it would be more beneficial if the flower was positioned in that area so we can see it. I'm much happier with it facing the outside rather than upwards. And then I'm going to finish with a flower that you might not think about using in floral design. This one is in plant form and it's by my side, so you might have spotted it. This is the heather. You might already have these growing in the garden and they're ideal for floral designs. But I've had some heathers in this week. I actually used these in a funeral design, but they're brilliant for using in floral design. So I'm going to cut a few little pieces off. Some of them are going to be too short for this arrangement, but they will work nicely when I do this arrangement in foam. And if you're subscribed to the channel and you've hit that notification bell, then you're going to get a notification when I upload a new tutorial. And what I will do is I'll take this apart so you can see how I would tackle this if it was an arrangement in foam. But there's many of us that are trying to be a little bit more sustainable and avoid using the single-use plastic. And in a container like this, which is nice and deep and holds water, it's an ideal opportunity to use the wire netting instead of foam. I'm just going to slightly move one of these roses from that side and bring it round a little bit because I had 3 or 4 heads very close together. So I'm just going to move this one to make the distribution a little bit more even, but not perfectly matching. And I don't think I'm going to put any more in this arrangement. I need to leave a little bit of space in between the flowers so the roses have a chance to open. I don't want the design to be too compact. I want a lovely bit of space in between. And I think that's turned out really well. So it's a lovely all-around arrangement to sit in the centre of a table. I think that's absolutely gorgeous. The pink really complements the golden container and the golden foliage. And all the different shades of reds and burgundies work really well together. So I hope you've enjoyed that video. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, then please do so. Hit that notification bell to be told every time I upload a new tutorial. And please leave a comment in the box below. It's brilliant to find out where you're watching me from. And you can let me know. Are you a foam lover or do you prefer chicken wire? And now I've got to remember to put the water back in. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again very soon. Bye for now.